Hey everybody, talking about the Mullica Hill tornado that happened on June 13th, 2019. Um, I guess for one thing, this has been a very active season for the Mid-Atlantic, for the East Coast, for the entire United States, including Tornado Alley. It's been a very busy season. And here we are now in mid-June, and we still have some activity. This is the time things start to taper down. Um, you know, Pretty unique to have tornadic storms, storms that have tornado warnings on them in the Philadelphia area. And then to actually get an actual tornado on the ground is even rarer. And we've had several in the vicinity this spring. Probably the largest being either the EF2 in Laurel, Delaware, which is a little further south of Philly, but not too far west from Philadelphia was the Morgantown, which is close to Reading, Pennsylvania tornado, which was a couple weeks ago. So a lot of stuff going on. A lot of tornado-warned storms also up towards Scranton, going in towards New York City. More straight-line wind events, but a lot of them were tornadically warned. But we did get a tornado touchdown in Mullica Hill, New Jersey, which is only about 5-7 miles from where I live. It's real close. I unfortunately got a flat tire yesterday, so didn't get a chance to get down there. But just kind of want to talk about the surface observations for this storm, which are pretty interesting because, one of the things about New Jersey is it's not too far, obviously, from the coast. It has the coast, the Atlantic Ocean. And, a lot of discussions and forecast discussions in terms of meteorology for this area talk about how much that marine atmospheric, bubble, interacts with the continental bubble of air. So, part of understanding this is, as that cold front or whatever it might be comes towards the ocean, how the oceanic air either kills it and zaps its energy out of it, or maybe gives it a little bit of a boost. I think primarily we've seen in forecast discussions that these, oceanic air masses zap the storms and take the tornadoes out of them. But something that was interesting about yesterday, looking back at these surface observations, is that winds were out of the east all day leading up to this event. So you had winds coming out of the east, and so that's obviously advection of oceanic air. The second thing that's sort of interesting is that if you just look at these surface observations here that I've been looking at this afternoon, and this is the day after the tornado, temperatures were really cool for this time of year. I mean, at nighttime getting down in the 50s, and then yesterday only got up to about 64 degrees in this area. So, not kind of the temperature that you'd expect a tornado to form. You'd expect something at least, in the 70s or 80s, but obviously it does happen. The other thing is not too much of a pressure change, about 1,015 millibars down about 1,007 over the course of the storm, so coming in about 29.72 inches. So, really not a huge shift in pressure. And so, as this storm happened yesterday evening, so the winds were out of the east during the day. They sort of shifted to the northeast once the squall line approached, quickly shifting to the southwest afterwards. And actually, as I have this beer here from Mount Holly, New Jersey, this is Spellbound Brewing, and that's actually where the National Weather Service is. For the Philadelphia area is also in Mount Holly. So little Friday evening IPA from Mount Holly, New Jersey, which is where NOAA is. But here we are, we're coming on 6 o'clock, and it's still windy out because we've had winds out of the west all day. So we've really seen that with every tornadic storm or strong storm that's come through this spring, is we have a very windy, clear weather windy day the next day. That has been consistent through this whole entire 2019 spring, early summer storm season. So, these are just kind of observations, not trying to necessarily go anywhere with it, but, this tornado, there is footage from the tornado in Mullica Hill yesterday. It's pretty impressive for New Jersey, to actually have a semi-developed debris field around the tornado. We have these tornadoes that come and snap trees down, little F0s and F1s, and that's about it. But pretty impressive. I mean, there was a legitimate debris field that was filmed with this tornado. Other interesting thing is that there was not a tornado watch out for this. It was a solo tornado warning out of this whole area. This area was not tornadally There was no tornado watch, excuse me, no tornado watch in the afternoon going into the evening. It was just a tornado warning that was put out for this particular cell. And if you look at the radar imagery from the cell, which I was looking at last night, it was a well-developed sort of bow echo and even a little bit of a hook where the tornado was. So, I mean, really a well-defined storm, but very localized. This line did come through and bring strong winds and rain to the entire Philadelphia region, but it really seemed to have its most grit here in South Jersey. Funny enough is that some of you have seen the YouTube video of me going out on, I believe it was April 26th. Is that right? So I guess almost 2 months ago now, which is, I think the Laurel, Delaware tornado was early April, about April 10th, April 15th. So, we're basically 2 months into this tornadic event in the Mid-Atlantic. We've pretty much had tornado-warned storms almost on a weekly basis, maybe every 2 weeks in some instances for 2 months now, which is really, really impressive. But the funny thing is about the storms that did really bad straight line wind damage on either the 26th or the 27th, which I chased that. I have that video up, and I saw those cells developing before they got to the area that they did the most damage, which was really directly east of Philadelphia. That that was on its way to being a mesocyclone, and there was a developed shelf cloud, and even at times hinting to want to be a wall cloud, although never quite getting there. I actually sent that video over Twitter to the National Weather Service, and I'm not sure if they saw it or not, but they do have a pretty extensive storm report up from that day. If you go to the Philadelphia forecast on NOAA right now, you actually see that report is still up there, along with about 3 others. Which is quite funny. You usually see 0 or 1 reports up on the National Weather Service for this area. Sorry, at least for Philadelphia, you really don't see many storm reports up there. But there's 4 posted there right now, so it just shows you how active of a season it's been. And we're seeing sort of the same pattern over and over again in terms of how these storms are forming. There's some mechanics that are similar to those in Tornado Alley, and some that are different. And some of that's really tied into those discussions I had in the previous video about the jet stream and how the jet stream might be changing with climate change, as well as how some of these tornadoes characteristics might be different in terms of how they form based on being closer to the ocean. But the funny thing is that as we shifted the winds to the north, to the west today, there was this northeasterly component that happened when the storms formed yesterday, and there's this northwesterly component that happened early this morning. So it's like there's almost this, and this is a really far-fetched sort of thing to say, but it's almost like some of the same ingredients that create northeasters in the Mid-Atlantic are sort of feeding into some of these tornadic storms. And now these aren't huge low pressure systems that are barreling up the coast, but it's more, I think, that you have cold oceanic air that's actually driving up the relative humidity, because you have both colder air over the Atlantic, and you have compared to overland in Pennsylvania or somewhere. And then you have, in some cases, higher moisture contents coming from the ocean. So it's almost like that's almost synonymous to Tornado Alley, where you have, warm moist air from the Gulf of Mexico, and then this cold Canadian air coming through the Rockies. So obviously much less dramatic, but you can see if we have changes in jet stream patterns, that sort of clashing of systems could become more common on the East Coast. So just a video, and definitely check it out. It's up on Twitter, maybe on YouTube, for the Mullica Hill tornado from June 13th, 2019 in southern New Jersey. Only 10 miles southeast of the Philadelphia International Airport, so very close to a major metropolitan. So that's all for today. Have a good weekend.